Hi, I'm in Holt Copse, which is an area of semi-natural ancient woodland in Wokingham, and it's very well planted with hazel. But what I'm noticing is that I don't see any nuts, and that's in spite of seeing on other walks the bushes have got plenty of fruit, all ripening ready for the autumn. I've even been in gardens where the ornamental varieties have got nuts. So what's going on in Holt Copse? And that's made me realise that I need to find out a lot more about hazelnuts.
So this hazelnut tree has been in our front garden for 48 years. We planted it as newlyweds. We have had lots of nuts from it over the years, which we have shared with the squirrels. And at one time there was a lady who used to come very early in the morning and scrump the nuts from the front bit. This is some of our harvest from last year. Got some nuts on this year, so we're hoping for a good little harvest again.
Hello, my name is Margaret Finch. We are very lucky to have a filbert nuttery, which maybe is quite unusual in Berkshire. We have done our best to manage the nuttery in maybe the traditional ways that they used to do many years ago. The filbert nut has the same husk around each nut, and it has a cluster of nuts, and it's a much more long pointy nut, almost like a fingernail shape, whereas the Kent cobnut is a round, nice round fat nut. Coppicing is good to do between 8 to 10 years, so you get the maximum growth, and we have liked to do a couple of rows at a time so that we still have trees in production. We coppice it down to the ground and then let all the new stems come up, and we don't at the moment thin out any of those stems, which maybe is the difference between us and maybe a commercial grower.
This is one of several large nut plats on Alan's farm, and it's been farmed by our family for generations, over 120 years. Our great aunt, who farmed this herself into her 80s up until about 1988, she would prune all of these with the help of her nut pruners, who were a family of travellers, and they had been pruning nuts all their life, and they were absolute masters at pruning nut trees. We get asked a lot by people who are interested in harvesting cobnuts or hazelnuts. I've got a tree or several trees, how can I get the nuts off the tree? So the reason why you might not have nuts on your tree is either because of predation, squirrels have stripped the trees, or because pollination isn't occurring. The tree produces catkins end of December, January time, and when the wind blows, they release pollen. Not all trees cross-pollinate, and they won't self-pollinate. So in order to get hazelnuts, you do need multiple trees of the same variety so the wind pollination takes effect. So if you find something like this in your woodland or in your garden, what you're looking to do is create space on the inside, and you're looking to reduce the number of suckers around the base of the tree so that most of the energy that the tree produces from its leaf canopy, from the roots, is put into nut production. This here is a wild hazel, and you can see it's just straight up, trying to get to the top as quickly as possible to get the light. And so if you've got something like this and you want to bring it down, then you're going to do it gradually over time and start to train branches out. So getting some of these lower suckers and encouraging them to come out, trying to create between 6 and 8 main branches instead of this scrum of vertical poles, and gradually train it down. The ultimate goal is to have between 6 and 8 main stems coming up from the ground, and then those stems branching off into a goblet-like shape. This enables you to reach in and pick the nuts, but it also gives the most surface area for the production of the nuts. So this is an example of a Kentish cobnut, which hasn't been pruned this season, but has been pruned year on year to create this goblet-like shape. So you can see there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 major stems coming up from the base. This stem has been grown over several years to replace what is an old rotten stem that's been cut out. And they spread out at about 3-4 feet here and create that nice space on the inside to give that big surface area to the canopy, which will produce lots of nuts. And you can see all the fingers coming out. So when we come along to prune these, we'll take all these suckers out from the inside. We'll take up any major verticals that are going to get in the way of the other trees, not letting the other branches, not letting the light. You can start to take those out, start to thin out. And you can put in a stay to keep that branch from folding back in, so you get it to grow and bend out as it matures, and that will produce lots of nice nuts. You can see lots of nice buds coming out on there. So here we are in July. It's sort of mid-July, very hot day today, perfect ripening conditions for the Kentish cobnut. And we're standing by one of the trees in our plat, in our middle plat. And as you can see, hidden amongst the lime green leaves, you can see these very light coloured nuts that are ripening in the sun. You can see as you look closer and your eyes get accustomed to the colour, you can see lots of clusters hiding in amongst the foliage. This is what a ripe nut will look like, but we're way from that point at the moment, well away from that point at the moment. These need another month and a half, 2 months of ripening before they're ready. They'll still be that colour, and we'll pick them at this colour. What you can also do, and what many people do, certainly in Italy where they're harvesting hazelnuts for putting in chocolate, etc., and for using for other foods, is they'll wait till the nuts actually go brown, because the husk of the nut here will turn from this lime green colour into a golden dark brown colour, and the flavour from all of that ripening process goes into the nut and really ripens and richens the flavour. And when they go brown, eventually they'll drop off and fall onto the floor. So at Alan's farm we harvest the nut from the tree manually, picking each one by hand. But in other nut plats, what they'll do is wait for the nuts to drop, and then they'll just hoover them up from the ground and use literally a large vacuum to pull them up from the ground. Now we're into the full growth. You'll notice what the benefits of the pruning process have been. Additional pruning has gone on midway through the growing to clear out all the additional shoots and nut wands from the base. And what this does is it clears the centre of the tree to create lots of air and light to help with the ripening process and reduce the demands on the tree for growth, and to put that energy into producing these large and flavourful nuts. The air also means that there's less chance for disease and a full harvest potential come September time.
This is right at the end of the harvest this year. The nuts, as you can see, they're turning brown. The husks are turning brown. It's the end of the last plat that we're picking here. Last few years we've had 10 kilos off each tree on average. We've got a lot of cobnuts coming off of this. The ones above, you can see that, you can just pull them off. They come off when they're wet like this. They often come off with the leaf as well. When they're drier, they're much more likely to just come off just the cobnut. Obviously, when you're shipping them, you've got to get rid of the greenery before you can ship them. But they do go through a sorting process after this. So, picking clean is great. But picking fast is great as well. So you've got to make that balance. As you come down through the tree, like here, often the cobnuts are hidden by the leaves. So you're doing it much more by touch. Down here, you're just feeling your way along the branches looking for cobnuts, picking as you go round, and usually just go round the tree once. You're not going to get them all, but you know, there's a trade-off between speed and quantity. That's why they're this high, you know, so that you can reach many of the cobnuts as possible and grab them off. We'll fill up these baskets, and then these baskets will go into trays, and the trays will go into the big bins on the tractor, and then the tractor will go down to the yard for sorting. The majority of them at this stage are going to be green and good to go, so they'll very quickly get sorted and packed and shipped. And then in about a month's time, the husks are going to go browner and browner, and the nuts are eventually going to start falling out of the husk of their own accord. As you can see, they're doing, you know, already on there, whereas with the green ones, they're really trapped in there tight. There we go, and that is the jewel in the crown. Beautiful wet cobnut.
Okay, so it's brown nut time of the harvesting season, and that's where the husk has turned brown and the nut is falling out of the husk, and we just are going to separate the husk from the nut and then sort the nuts ready for packing and shipping. And in order to do that, we've got this machine here which allows us to hoover up the nuts, pass it through a threshing process to separate the husk away from the actual shell, and it spits out the nut, and then that allows us to go through and sort the nuts, which we're going to do over behind me, before we finally pack them and ship them away.